Welcome to the very first episode of Podcasting for Educators. There's so much I want to cover in my first few episodes, so we're going to jump right in to content today, talking about the topic of determining whether or not podcasting is the right choice for you and your business. Let's do it. Welcome to Podcasting for Educators, the podcast that helps TPT authors and other online educators launch and grow their show. I'm Sarah, and I'm on a mission to help you get your podcast out and into the ears of those who need it most: busy teachers, counselors, literacy specialists, SLPs, parents, and everyone in between. Each week, we'll cover quick tips, strategies, and podcast industry updates so that you can be on top of your podcasting game and gain some new customers along the way. Are you ready? Let's get to it. Well, hello. Again, welcome to the very first episode of Podcasting for Educators. I am so glad that you're here with me today. Starting this podcast has been something that I wanted to do for a while now, and I'm finally doing it. So here we are. I suppose I should introduce myself a little bit before we jump into things today. My name is Sarah, and I am a podcast manager, which I'll tell you a little bit more about in a second. But I am from Northern Virginia. If you know the area at all, you'll know that it's kind of a state of its own right outside of Washington, D.C. My background is in education, so I have my master's degree in elementary education. I taught for 7 years. I taught first grade and second grade as a classroom teacher, and then I also taught ELL. In 2019, I started my own online business as a virtual assistant, and then that quickly pivoted into podcast management. And everybody always asks me, how in the world did you get involved in podcast management? A lot of people don't even know what podcast management is. So a real quick story on that. I started as a virtual assistant, and one of my clients was Lauren Wrighton, who teaches business owners how to become podcast managers. So she has an online course that teaches you, how to learn how to edit, how to run your business, how to do all of the details that come with podcast management. And so she let me go through her course, and I quickly realized that this is what I wanted to do. I love listening to podcasts, and I really wanted to help other people launch their podcasts. So I quickly kind of made that shift, and business just kind of took off, and I haven't looked back ever since. So considering that I do this for other people full time, it's pretty wild to be on the other side of things, but also very, very exciting. And I'm going to back up just a little bit in case you are asking yourself, what in the world is a podcast manager? So we work with online businesses in kind of two main ways. So we help people launch their podcasts. So go through every step of the process with them, from planning their podcast out to actually implementing their ideas and getting their podcast out there. And then we also do monthly podcast management. So that might include, everything that comes with getting your episodes out week to week. So editing, show notes, graphics, scheduling, guest booking, all of those little details. So it's really, really fun to be able to work with different kinds of businesses and help them get their ideas off and running, and then being able to just take those things off of their plate every week so that it makes it easier for them to keep up with their podcasts. I used to work with all kinds of podcasters, and now I mostly work with those of you who have TPT businesses, which is so cool because it kind of allows me to still be involved in the world of education, which I absolutely love. This podcast will be geared towards giving you tips as to how to incorporate your podcast into your online business. And I'm kind of starting this podcast for a few different reasons. The first reason is because I want to be able to provide you with the information you need to launch your podcast, grow your podcast if you already have one. I know that not everybody can afford a podcast manager, or you might not even want to. You might want to do everything yourself, but you just need a little bit of help with understanding the strategy and the different steps that you need to take to get your show off the ground. My second reason for starting this show is honestly so that I can kind of experiment for myself to see what works and what doesn't work. Things in the podcasting industry are constantly evolving, and having my own show is going to help me kind of see the back end of things and experiment and be able to take my experiences and bring it back to my clients and to you to give you kind of the most up-to-date tips and strategies. Let's get into what I want to talk about today. The big question is, why should I start a podcast, or why should I continue my podcast? When you have an online business, there's so many things that you have to consider. You've got Facebook, you've got Instagram, you've got Pinterest and YouTube and Twitter and just all of the things, right? And so why podcasting? Whether you are considering starting your podcast and you haven't even done anything yet and you're just kind of toying with the idea, or if you have a podcast and maybe you're struggling to keep up with it, or you're wondering if it's even worth it, that's what we're going to look at today. I know a lot of you like your data, so let's look at a couple stats from a survey. It's called the Infinite Dial. This is from 2021. A new one will be coming out in a few months for 2022. And when that happens, I'll update you. But this is from Edison Research, and it's the longest running survey of digital media consumer behavior in the United States. So this is just for the United States. So in this survey for 2021, they found that 222 million people in the United States are familiar with podcasting, and the average podcast listener listens to 8 episodes per week. And this is for ages 12 and up. The overall consensus of the survey is that podcasting has grown significantly, especially with weekly listeners. So you can, if you Google, and I'll put this in the show notes too, but you can Google this survey and look at the findings a little bit. But the biggest thing is that people have shifted to kind of listening to just episodes here and there to being dedicated weekly listeners. Why does this matter? Why do these numbers matter for your business? Why does the fact that podcasting is growing matter for your business? So the thing that sets podcasting apart from other platforms like blogging or Instagram or Facebook groups is its accessibility by far. The greatest thing about podcasts is that people can listen whenever and wherever they want. They can listen in their car. They can listen while they're cleaning, while they're working out, while they're taking a bath or taking a shower. Wherever they are, as long as they have their phone, they can listen to you. They don't have to be tied to a chair and looking at a computer screen. So the accessibility factor alone is, in my opinion, what sets podcasting apart. And then when somebody tunes in to listen to your episodes, they are seeking you out very intentionally. Podcasting is an intentional act. When you're on Instagram, you're just scrolling. You might look at somebody's post or somebody's stories for, 5-10 seconds. Whereas somebody who's pushing play on your podcast episode, they are doing that intentionally because they want to listen to you. They want to hear what you have to say. They want to learn from you. And most people listen to 80% or more of a podcast episode. So if you are releasing weekly episodes that are 15, 20, 30 minutes once a week, you're having somebody's attention for 30 plus minutes every single week. It's not even comparable to what somebody's seeing on your Instagram page. So those two things alone, the accessibility and the engagement factor, those are the top two biggest things that set podcasting apart from other platforms. Let's think about if podcasting is right for you or not, because maybe you're like, Sarah, that's great. Obviously people are listening to podcasts, but how do I incorporate this into my business? Is this even a smart move for me? Podcasting is probably a good choice for you if you are looking to create one piece of macro content that you can then repurpose into smaller pieces of content, like your social media posts, your newsletters, your blog posts, your Pinterest pins, all of those little things that you have to do and you probably already are doing every week. Podcasting is just going to make that easier for you because if you're planning your content intentionally, you can create one podcast episode and have that kind of be your overarching theme for the week. And then from that episode, you can pull out little pieces of content for all the other places of your business. Podcasting is also a great choice if you want to show up for your audience, but you don't love being on video for longer than a few minutes at a time. You can podcast in your pajamas or you can podcast however you want. It doesn't matter what you look like unless you're doing video podcasts. And even then, hey, no judgments here if you want to be in your pajamas as long as you're comfortable, but you don't really have to get yourself ready. You don't have to be on video for podcasting and you can really do it anywhere. You don't have to be at your desk. There's plenty of people who podcast in their car and that might not get you the best audio, which we'll talk about in a future episode of how to get great audio, but you can podcast anywhere. This makes podcasting a really great tool, whether you are an extrovert or an introvert. So I know there's a lot of business owners out there who have more of that introverted personality, maybe showing up on Instagram stories or in your Facebook group and doing Facebook lives or Instagram lives. Maybe that's really hard for you. And maybe it's draining for you. I know I feel that way a lot of times. On the other hand, it's also great for extroverts because you get to sit in front of a mic and you can talk for as long as you want to. So it's kind of great for either personality type. The third reason that podcasting might be a great choice for you is if you're really dedicated to extending your impact. If you want to be able to reach more people on a more intimate level, then podcasting is a no-brainer. If you're speaking to educators like teachers and counselors and administrators, any type of educator, we all know that those are busy, busy people. And this podcasting is a great way to reach them and to reach more of them. Okay, let's look at a fourth reason that podcasting might be a good choice for you and your business. If one of your goals is to increase your visibility and your authority in your niche, having a podcast does this. If you are a TPT author, this is an amazing opportunity for you to increase your visibility and let people know that you are an expert in what you're speaking on. As much as podcasts are blowing up all over the place, in the world of TPT businesses, there is so much room for growth. There's not nearly enough or as many podcasts out there as there are TPT stores, TPT blogs. Having a podcast is just ultimately, it's going to set you apart from other people who do similar work that you do. And then the last thing I want to mention is that podcasting is a good choice for you if you're curious about having a new way to promote your resources. And I'm going to really dig into this in the next episode, but having a podcast is just a great way to up your know, like, and trust factor and get people to want to buy from you. And like I said, we'll talk more about that in the next episode. Okay, so now I want to touch on 3 questions that I want you to ask yourself if you are thinking of starting a podcast. If you're kind of on the fence, hopefully this will help you determine if this is a route you want to take or not. So the first one is, and this is definitely the biggest thing to consider, is are you willing to put in the time and be consistent? And the time that you need to set aside for your podcast is really going to be determined by whether or not you're going to take all of this on by yourself or if you're going to outsource any of your podcast related tasks. So the time that you're going to need to put in will vary based on a few things. The length of your episodes. You'll want to consider, do you want to do little mini episodes that are 10 minutes? Or will you be doing more of like that 20 to 30 minute time frame? Or are you going to be doing hour-long episodes? Because that's going to make a big difference in how much time you need to plan for. You also need to consider the consistency of your episodes. So are you going to do one a week? People always ask, what should I do? How much should I do? One a week? Should I do one every other week? I would say most people do one per week. Some people even do two per week. That's a lot of work. But a lot of people do bi-weekly episodes too. And if you want to do bi-weekly, that's okay. Just pick something and stick to it. When you stick to your episode schedule, you're going to gain the trust of your listeners. It's okay if you have to take a break every now and then and miss a week. It's not the end of the world. But overall, you want to be consistent because people are going to be looking forward to listening to you every week. Okay, so let's go back to that piece about whether or not you're going to do all of the work yourself or if you're going to outsource. This will really determine how much time will go into your show. So let's think about what goes into a podcast episode. Let's look at the planning piece first. So I get asked a lot, should I write a script for my episodes? This is totally based on what you're comfortable with, but I do not recommend writing a full out script for every single episode. And for two reasons. One being that it's very time consuming to write out a word for word script. And two, when you have a script for your episodes, people are going to know that you're reading from a script. It's going to come off that way and it's going to probably sound fairly bland. And you've heard people read from scripts. It's got a very different feel than somebody who's kind of, I don't want to say winging it because I don't think you should wing your episodes, but I think you should find a sweet spot, which is creating an outline. So you're going to bullet point the main topics that you want to cover, and then you'll record. So you're doing an outline, you're recording. Your next step would be to edit. Some people don't edit their episodes. And again, that's a personal preference. I am definitely on team edit because I think you want to make the listening experience as wonderful as possible for your audience. You don't have to overly edit, but you want to take out things like background noise and big long pauses and excessive likes, all of those filler words. So I am definitely on team edit your podcast. So editing is definitely the most time consuming piece of producing a podcast episode. It typically takes anywhere from 2 to 4, I would say usually 3 to 4 times the length of the episode to edit it. I'll do an episode later on editing, but just know that it is a time-consuming piece of the puzzle. So you've got your planning piece, your recording, your editing, and then show notes for your website. And then you'll need to upload and schedule it to a host. I'd say those are like your must-haves. And then you've got other pieces like promotional graphics and things like that. In a few episodes, I'm going to be doing a launch series where I will kind of walk you through the details of what it takes to launch a podcast and kind of like your weekly workflow moving forward. But for now, just know that those are like the big pieces of producing an episode. You can probably tell that if you are going to be doing everything for your podcast, then that's going to be a greater time commitment than if you're going to outsource it. So let's say that you might plan on doing a 20-minute episode once a week and you're going to manage it all by yourself. I would plan for, at least like 4 hours a week, 4 to 5 hours a week for all the pieces. And then if you're going to outsource all of that, then I would plan for about an hour a week because you want to plan for your, giving yourself about an hour to outline and to record a 20-minute episode. And then you would hand it off to your podcast manager. So that's kind of the first big thing to ask yourself or to consider is, are you able to put in the time and be consistent? The second thing I want you to ask yourself is, are you going to plan for your podcast like you do other parts of your business? If you're going to do a podcast for your business, then you want to treat it like any other piece of your business and consider it part of your sales funnel. You want to plan for it like you do your other content. You want to talk about it like you do your other content and your resources, and you want to promote it like you do your resources. And the great thing is you can combine the two. So you'll be able to promote your resources in your podcast. And then when you promote your podcast episodes, people will learn about your resources. So it can all kind of be combined. And then the third thing I want you to consider is, will you be in it for the long haul? You don't want to start a podcast and say, hey, I'm going to see how this goes for, 2 months. We want to think about podcasting as a long game. It can be, in my opinion, one of the most powerful marketing strategies for your business, but you have to give it time. This isn't anything new to you, I'm sure. You've probably heard the same thing about Pinterest and about Instagram because these things all take time. If you already have an audience on Instagram or you already have a good amount of people on your email list, then this is probably going to be a little bit of a faster process for you. But you don't have to have a huge audience to start a podcast. You really don't. But you do need to go into it knowing that you're going to need to give it some time. And if you show up consistently and you talk about it consistently, it's going to pay off and it's going to grow. I know that people like to hear like a set number or a set time frame. So if you are wondering, if I start a podcast, how long should I stick with it for before I decide if this is for me? My honest answer is that I think if you start a podcast, you should aim to stick with it for at least a year. And I think if you stick with it for a year, you're going to see amazing results. Okay, so it's probably no surprise that I think podcasting is a super smart move for your business and for the impact that it will have on other people. The time and financial investment is well worth it. You're creating content that's going to far outlive social media posts, and it will stand out against the millions of blogs there are. I would love to hear from you to see what you thought about this episode and any questions that have come up for you about starting a podcast after listening. The best way to get in touch with me is on Instagram at Podcasting for Educators. That will also be in the show notes, or you can always shoot me an email at sarah@podcastingforeducators.com. Lastly, before I forget, I am doing a giveaway to celebrate this launch. So I am going to have 2 winners. The first winner will receive my very favorite mic. It's the one I use. And it's what I recommend for anybody who's doing podcasting from their house. And it's the ATR 2100X. It's a USB mic that you can just plug right into your computer. This giveaway also comes with a boom arm that you can attach to your desk so you don't have to worry about your mic falling over or holding your mic or anything like that. And then the second prize is your choice of a 60-minute strategy call on Zoom or on Voxer with me, which is going to be great for anyone who's just starting their podcast or thinking about starting their podcast, or for anybody who already has a show, but you have questions about how to grow your podcast. Okay, so to enter, I'm trying to make this super easy. So to enter the giveaway, you just need to leave a review on Apple Podcasts. And if you don't have Apple Podcasts, if you don't use it, you can just send me a message on Instagram and that will be awesome too. So leave a review and then screenshot your review and send it to me either on Instagram or email, sarah@podcastingforeducators.com. And then a bonus entry will be for you to screenshot one of these first 3 episodes and tag me on Instagram, on your Instagram stories. And again, I am at Podcasting for Educators on Instagram. And in the next episode, I'm going to talk all about how to leverage your podcast as part of your online business. Thanks so much for listening, and I will see you then. Thanks so much for tuning in today. Check out the show notes for any links and resources that were mentioned. If you have questions, takeaways, or just want to say hi, send me a message over on Instagram at Podcasting for Educators. Bye for now.